Hello and welcome. My name is Megan, and today I will be painting a model by MiniMonsterMayhem. Their link will be in the video description, so please check them out. This monster is somewhat unusual, as I'm sure you noticed. You won't find it anywhere in the monster manual or whatever Pathfinder uses. This monster, I think, is just dreamt up. Not really sure what it is, so I'm gonna call it K, and I will be making up some lore about it later on. So I started off by laying down a relatively dark base coat of Warlord Purple. I am using the airbrush for this model because I love the airbrush, and also because it is a large model with a lot of just empty space as far as details go. And that is ideal for the airbrush because it will allow us to very organically blend colors together by applying thin, bright layers of paint over top of one another to create very smooth transitions from one color to another. The next color we added was Squid Pink. It's a little bit closer to the color that I want in the end. I'm using pink ink to enrich the Squid Pink. I fucking scared myself again. God damn. Sorry. So next I'm going to blend in what Vallejo calls basic skin tone to the areas that I think are more humanoid to maximize the cursed factor in this miniature. And then we'll just use pink ink to nicely blend that into the rest of the model. I'm not sure why, but I just feel that K should be a very bright pink. And maybe later I'll even put a little bit of blush into his cheeks. I just love the way the airbrush works. It's kind of like a magic wand that just teleports beautiful color onto your model. I used red ink to color the mouth and gums. Look at those teeth, they're so huge and so disgusting. Like, he definitely has never been to a dentist or even in the vicinity of a toothbrush. Not that he could reach a toothbrush with his tiny little arms. And like, where does his food even go? All he's got is a mouth and like a Hank Hill butt. Seriously. You know what? I think it's about time that we get into some of the lore around K. No one is quite sure when or where K came about. Even the oldest beings in the realm cannot remember a time before his existence. Some speculate that he came into being as a manifestation of the gluttony and greed of humanity. And others say that he was simply the result of an experiment gone horribly wrong. Well, one thing is for sure, he exists only to consume. And his favorite meal is power. He hunts down adventurers and monsters. He has the strange ability to manifest the power of his last meal. For example, if he were to consume a red dragon, he would be able to breathe fire upon his prey. Or if he were to eat a paladin, for example, he may be able to summon the powers that be to smite his enemies. One thing's for sure, No two fights with this beast are the same, and if you are hunting him, you must be prepared for anything. Upon spotting his prey, he opens his mouth wide and inhales. A great gust of wind draws the prey into his mouth. Some speculate that those that fall victim to K do not actually die, but are simply transported to a pocket dimension within his body, and that is how he draws upon the powers of his victims. Alright, with the blush added, I think that's gonna be it for the airbrush. And now we move on to hand brushing. First I will be applying ivory over the teeth. I've found ivory to be the best color for teeth because it is off-white with just a tiny bit of brown mixed in there, and is therefore shaded really well with light washes, allowing you to give the teeth a nice, disgusting, dirty appearance. Some things to note. I would recommend, if you are painting this miniature, to lay down a layer of white over the teeth, because the white will cover more efficiently than ivory, and then you can put ivory over top. Alright, now I'm on to filling the mouth with heavy red. I'm hoping to give the mouth the appearance of a never-ending tunnel, so I will be wet blending the heavy red, black ink, and scarlet red together. Now, wet blending is a very useful method for when you want to create good transitions and aren't using an airbrush. To wet blend, you want to make sure that your paints are watered down a little bit, or that you're using a wet palette and a very wet brush. Wet blending is exactly what it sounds like. You are mixing wet paints together directly on the model. And I did this in 3 steps, with the darkest part being the depths of the mouth using black ink, and the lighter parts being scarlet blood on the part of the mouth that is closest to the teeth. I will, of course, ruin all of this later by applying Nuln Oil, but the process is still fun to watch. Before I dive back into the lore, I'd like to take a second to talk about washes. As I just said, I ruined this wet blending with Nuln Oil. Washes are a fantastic tool. They apply shadows in highly textured areas very effectively. And they're also very good for making a model look dirty, as you saw in my Clockwork Dragon video, and as you will also see in this video when I apply a light wash to the teeth. But I wish that instead of using the Nuln Oil, I had simply used a layering technique, which is where you apply your darkest color, and then over top of that you apply progressively lighter colors, usually on top of raised areas. For example, I could have applied it on the raised parts of the gum, with the lowest parts and in the wrinkles still being the heavy red, but the higher parts progressing towards scarlet and maybe even a little bit lighter. You live and you learn, eventually. Okay, back to the K lore. K is an ambush predator. He prefers to dwell in dungeons and ruins where powerful beings will come searching for treasure or magical items, only to find they've fallen into his trap and are consumed and lost forever. The few that have seen him and survived say that while his primary weapon is his mouth and his ability to suck you in, his secondary weapon is to roll into a ball and crush you. He uses this against creatures that he does not deem powerful enough or worthy to consume. Jumping back into the paint, here is a very good example of when to use a wash. I'm simply applying it into the deepest recesses of the teeth and the bases in order to help maximize the disgustingness of the model, and also because he definitely could not brush his teeth. I don't know what those arms are for, they're probably vestigial. Alright, I painted white over his eyes because eyes are white. Please remember that it is very important to use very fine-tipped brushes while doing these tiny details. Okay, next I painted the iris dark Prussian blue, and then heavy blue over top of that. The pupil is a black circle that is definitely in the center. Don't look too hard. And finally, we give a little bit of a sparkle to his eyes. This is important because that is how you give life to your model. Okay, I used Yoo-hoo to attempt to give him some good and nasty saliva strands. This has worked really well for me in the past, but this time they ended up stretching too far and bent and broke. So if you're going to use this technique, I recommend using it on a smaller model, like this beholder I painted a while back. An alternate method I have also used is to use Vallejo water effects and simply let it flatten out on a smooth surface and then cut pieces out and attach those with super glue to your model. These are generally very clear and stable. And now on to the glamour shots. I think that this Kirby, Kay, came out really well. Aside from the things I mentioned before, he still looks like an absolutely horrifying monster that I definitely would not want to encounter anywhere, ever. As a player character or in real life. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned a little something today, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. This is so fucking cursed. What have I done?